fifth time I've done this now. So
We are live.
All right. Good morning. We are in Senate Judiciary. It's April 7th. For most of this week, we'll be taking budget requests and presentations from a number of different organizations. Basically, all the same folks that were on our letter last year to the Appropriations Committee. And we provided each entity 30 minutes, and we're starting off with the Defender General. The floor is all yours.
thank you. I'm Matt Valerio. I'm the Defender General. I'm going to show you basically the same for presentation with some supplements that I compared to what I did in all the Appropriations Committee and also in the House Judiciary Committee. Some of the slides have changed a little bit because some of the data changed a little bit. And we also have a House proposal that we are aware of. So it kind of changes the last slide. You tell me how much detail you want. I always put in here, some people don't really know what the Defender General does. I'm hoping that you folks do at this point. In the shortest summary, we provide public defense services for criminal and juvenile cases. We represent everybody committed to the custody of the Commissioner of Corrections through a Prisoners' Rights Office. We do post-conviction relief and appeals, and we provide administration and you folks with advice from the defense perspective regarding all of the areas, policy areas that we do. And of course, I administer the public defense system. This is a chart of our organization. The important part of this is we have two sides to our budget. It's not, and if you don't mind. Public defense is state employees. Assigned counsel are the contractors. Now we allocate a few hours of work on this side from our administration side to deal with statistics and some of the administrative side of assigned counsel. But we have a public defense budget, state employees, and then we have this side, which is all the contractors. This is a summary of what the governor's recommended budget did. And fundamentally, it attempted to provide us with a current service level, provided the rollouts for salaried staff and benefit increases. We have a 4-year contract with our primary public defense contractors on the public defense side. This provides for the increase in year 2, provides increases for the public defense serious felony unit contracts, provides an increase for the assigned counsel, the conflict side of the serious felony units. We have more pending murders now than we've had in a long time. They're not all murders, if you know what I mean. We have a lot of these aiding in the commission of second-degree murder, which in my experience previously would have been charged as aggravated assaults, but the ante, and as a result, they get the serious felony units. Provides an increase for third-party services in assigned counsel. Oddly enough, the governor's budget didn't provide the same increase on the public defense side. And there's miscellaneous stuff like increase in rents and I'm sure that we're going to see an increase in like fuel costs, things like that, that were not anticipated in the budget originally. I always bring up the fact, because why not, that the DG's office has remained within budget for 24 consecutive years. The big reason for that is I've set up a system that is predictable. And we have, and many years ago, developed an algorithm to attempt to, it's not exactly correct, but it attempts to estimate what the conflict counsel caseload is going to be based on history and a trend analysis. And finally, what has happened is we have effectively made ad hoc an extraordinarily minor part of our program, when in fact it was the largest way we've provided conflict representation in years past, basically prior to me. Ad hoc services are 5 times as expensive as our contracts. And they're totally unpredictable, and you have no real control over the quality of the representation, because I don't select who is ad hoc. And sometimes you get the good people, sometimes you get a warm body. And so that's something, to me, it's expensive, uncontrollable, and quality. That's the kind of thing you don't want to do if you can avoid it. So what are our challenges? The biggest one, and it's going to be a problem more even this year than last year. I think the numbers will be less, but maintaining and attracting caseload relief contracts and assigned counsel contracts. I'll give you an example. I know everybody likes to talk about Chittenden County, so I'll do that. 2 years ago, I had 5 primary public defense assigned counsel contractors in Chittenden County. I had 2 backups and then a 3rd backup to that. And I also had 5 caseload relief contractors to absorb conflict cases in the northern part of the state. Right now, I have 4 conflict contractors in Chittenden County. I have no backups, and I have 3 caseload relief contractors. So I have less than half of the number of people doing the work up there than I had just a couple of years ago. Other personal services is an area of case-related services, so like private investigators and evaluators for mental health purposes, that people who do crime scene reconstruction, a bunch of different support services, case-related services, are all requesting increases. The doctors who are involved in like this psych evals and the like have tripled their demands for pay since COVID, since the pandemic. It's primarily driven by the fact that we've gone out of state to provide the independent evaluations. They're charging $600 an hour, and so people who used to charge $200 an hour in Vermont, to the extent that any exist anymore, we lost a lot of them. The people don't exist. The ones who are around are now saying, "Hey, if they're getting $600 an hour, so are we." And so that's a problem for us. We've had a lot of problems hiring staff in the staff and contract systems. 20 years ago, if I had an opening in the Chittenden office, I'd get 120 applications and weed through a bunch of good people. Now I can wait 6 months and I don't get an application at all. In Franklin County, I have an opening right now, and it's been open for a number of months. I'm not even getting an application. Despite the fact that I think we don't do badly with how we pay, maybe I'm not thinking about it right, but private sector pay has far outstripped what we can pay in public defense, even with the benefits of health insurance and the like that you get. We've had a data manager position we haven't been able to hire for a couple of years now. And the required statutory training in the governor's recommend was not funded again. Now, oddly enough, last year, I think it was just a mistake. I'm sure it was. And I know that Senator Norris and I've talked about this, but some money did go into the budget for training, but it went it went into one time instead of the base. And so it's not in the, didn't come in the base. So it should have been in the base side in any event. This is what the governor's recommended budget does. In any event, I wanted to show you kind of what we're dealing with caseload. This just gives you a context. We had an overall increase of over 7% in fiscal year 24. Biggest increase was the other cases, and other cases are probation violations. It's almost 60%. So there were a lot of people who were kind of hanging out there and during the pandemic, and as they started to resurface, we see them violating their probation. In fiscal year 25, that 7% increase was followed by an 11% increase in cases. Cases are people, by the way. Charges are like counts, docket numbers. We continued to see a 30+% increase in other cases, which are the probation violations. But we also started to see increases in misdemeanors and in felonies, and they combine. And I've highlighted certain counties where you see, big increases. Orange County's caseload more than doubled.
Yeah, what happened in Orange County?
They got a state's attorney. They got a new one. We see that, especially in small counties, you can have a big, their state's attorney who was there was appointed to be a judge. New state's attorney comes in. They kind of mark their territory. We see this somewhat regularly, and you tend to see an increase. The ones I'm more concerned about are the Wyndham, Windsor, Chittenden increases. Chittenden County has 39% of the state caseload, and so when you see a 15% increase in Chittenden County, that's concerning. Bennington is also one of those typical counties that kind of blows up when things start to get a little bit more active.
Senator North.
Yeah, I just got a quick question. Just out of curiosity, when you look at your charges versus cases, is there any percentage that we can look at as far as we're simply settled, or many of them have more than one charge when they go into court?
Well, that's what charges is.
I know, but how many of those actually goes away if I got 3 charges against me and I'm one person? When you get to court, how many of those actually?
That's a whole different
ballgame. Okay.
Different thing. The reason I give you this is because our allocation of resources is based upon lawyer equivalent caseload. Lawyer equivalent caseload is based on added cases, okay, not charges, cases, which is people. And so when I'm talking about budget, I'm concerned with lawyer equivalent caseload. If you want to talk about like disposition results and that sort of thing, that's a whole other analysis that, the vast majority of people obviously don't go to trial. It's like 2% or less. The vast majority of people don't get convicted of what they're charged with. It's like half. I could go on and on. Every different thing, different charges and different results. As far as that goes. That was criminal. This is the family law cases in fiscal year 25. We had a massive increase in termination of parental rights cases in fiscal year 24. So you see a reduction of 11% for termination of parental rights cases, but we saw like an 80% increase the year before. Basically, overall, it was flat, but it was flat after a pretty big increase. This is for the first half of 26, which is last July through January. You can see highlighted the places that were some of the biggest. Franklin Grand Isle was pretty big too, but we're again on top. We're another 6.7% on top of what I've already shown you. Again, our probation violations are high, and it's year after year after year on top of each other, showing no signs of flattening out. The felony and misdemeanor caseloads, however, have flattened out to some degree. Misdemeanors are up a bit, and so I'm hopeful that at least we're going to turn a corner there. Chittenden County went bananas the first quarter of fiscal year 26, and we saw like a 39% increase in the caseload in Chittenden County the first quarter, and then the second quarter it dipped significantly, and so it's basically flat. I was really worried. You might remember I came in and testified one of the maybe it was joint justice about that. Remember, Chittenden County has 39% of the state's caseload, so when you see a big increase, that's a lot of cases, and it affects everything, especially when you're down 5 contractors in that area. This just kind of gives you a graphic understanding of what's going on in the first half of comparing the first half of 25 to 26. Criminal backlog is interesting. We hadn't been making really any meaningful progress at it over a couple of years. And then in the last quarter of it's the second quarter of 26, but basically from September until January, we saw a huge decrease. So if you want to look at whatever your particular county is doing, I threw this in there. Legislators seem to want to know what their county's doing. But to me, the most important thing is this. We were up to 14,000 case backlog, and it would dip, but then it would always go up as a result of charges in the summer. This year, however, we saw a significant decrease through December, and then it dipped again through 25. Now look at what happens if you go over a 2-year period. We are actually making some progress with that. I believe that is primarily due to the fact that the judiciary is as close to fully staffed with judges as it's been in probably 5 years. And I anticipate that will continue. Note that all of this what predated the so-called accountability court. That didn't start until really January. December, January, you actually saw a little increase, but that was one county. In any event, progress was being made there. So I talked about the various ways that the DG's office provides services. I go from the bottom up. Public defender staff offices, as you might expect, are more expensive than the other 2 contract areas because of state benefits and the fact that we are renting physical space and the like. Public defender contractors are private law firms that provide primary public defense. And then you have the conflict side, which is $183,000. Now these costs go through fiscal year 23. I'm showing you something interesting here. Ad hoc counsel, as you can see, as I told you before, is far and away the most expensive way we do business, and we do everything we can not to put cases in that. It represents less than 2% of our total caseload. This is updated through, and you'll find this, I'll explain why this is really interesting as we go forward. But this is the fiscal year 25 through July of this past year. Our actual cost per case, our cost per LEC, per lawyer equivalent caseload, has actually dropped, except for with PD contracts, because we just renewed those. We do 4-year contracts, and in the first year, you tend to make up for what you've lost. And then over the next years, you start to see a reduction. So this is kind of a summary of what that was talking about. PD staff, we've actually reduced our cost per LEC by $1,000, not much, but what else has gone down in the last 2 years? The PD contracts went up by a little bit. Signed contracts went down by a little bit, cost per LEC, and ad hoc went down. I can explain all of those. PD staff is just your regular rollout, but they're handling more cases. Our cost went up slower than the number of cases that they're handling. As a result, their cost per LEC went down by a little bit. Public defender contracts, I just explained, we ended in the first year of 4 years, so they were making up for what they didn't get during those high inflationary period of time, but didn't go up that much. Signed counsel contracts went down, and while the individuals are making more per LEC than they ever have before, they're also handling more caseload. And so when you do the cost per LEC analysis, that way of providing service also went down. And the one that I find very interesting is that the cost for ad hoc counsel has gone down per LEC. Why is that important? Because what that means is we're doing exactly what I designed it to do, which is to make sure that only misdemeanors are being handled in the ad hoc range, because caps on felonies are higher, and if we make sure we focus on misdemeanors, then the cost per LEC is going to go down. That's why that's what happened. You can see over a period of time what ad hoc cases used to be when I first started and where they are now. 85% reduction in cost, over 75% reduction in over caseload. That's where we get rid of the unpredictability. It's where we save the money, and anything that forces cases into ad hoc costs a lot of money, and it's not predictable. So that's why we keep it away from there. This is that ups and downs sheet that the people in appropriations really like. This was again, the governor's recommend. I put that in there for your information. I don't pay a lot of attention to it, to be honest. Finally, this is the one that probably you want to pay attention to. And I'll tell you what the difference is. The governor's recommended budget put additional money into other personal services, the case-related expenditures, and did it in assigned counsel, but they didn't mirror that in public defense. And I had asked for it both sides. I don't really know why. Sometimes things are done just to make sure things balance, as opposed to any real rational reason. I feel like I need to put some more money into assigned counsel contracts to try to encourage people to take them. I didn't get what I asked for, and that's there. Again, this in-person training line is one where it's quote unquote unfunded, but it's unfunded in the base, right? So it's actually a budget neutral compared to last year. It's just that it was put in one time. It needs to ultimately get back in person in the base, as opposed to some kind of one-time thing where I have to come back every year and say, hey, where's my training money? This is the next section is the most important part, but I want to say something about what the House did. The House, see that 580,000 there? The House gave 350,000. And they said, well, where do you want to do with it? And I said, well, we'll do 50 toward training, and we put did the 80. Bottom line is we split it up between the PDOPS and the training. So there's $350,000 more. The part that is most problematic right now see, it says PD special fund shortfall. We always get spending authority of about $600,000. We haven't got $600,000 in that fund in a decade. So it's, we're always digging out of a hole every year. So I've kind of learned to figure out how to work around it. I always bring it up because it makes no damn sense, to be honest, to always say you've got $600,000 to spend when you never have $600,000 to spend. And, you know, my sense, everybody's complicit in that. Administration puts it forward that way. Legislature goes along with it. Fine. I know that it's $300,000 less than that we always get. The part that is really unrealistic is in the budget, there's vacancy savings, a vacancy savings target of $610,000. There's no way in hell I'm going to get anywhere close to $610,000 vacancy savings. And so a realistic amount is the reducing that to 290,000. Basically, it's $310,000 that needs to go in to reduce the vacancy savings to something that's manageable. So some of those things you kind of knock out of there. Don't worry about the special fund. I just bring it up because it's just one of those, as a former business owner owning multiple businesses, like I don't even know why we do such things because it makes no sense. But vacancy savings, those are effectively 3 positions that at some point or another, when people leave, I'm just not going to replace. If the legislature chooses to put a vacancy savings in there of $610,000, and then there's the one other thing, which is this accountability court thing. I didn't ask for any money when it was implemented in January. I don't know if I was going to get it, but I didn't think we needed it per se. I did commit $50,000 of social work services out of our OPS budget for that 3-month period. And I was asked recently if we expand the accountability court stuff to the whole state, do you need money for that? And this is the answer. If I get what I need here, I don't need extra money for accountability. If I end up with a $610,000 vacancy savings issue, then I'm going to have a problem. But, you know, what'll happen is the workaround is things slow down. Cases don't move. And, you know, you have to kind of target it. And I've been doing this for a long time. I know how to pull the levers and make sure that happens. So we'll stay within budget, which apparently, you know, whatever ends up happening, I think the legislature makes a policy decision about what they want me to do and what they don't want me to do. In the context of our total state budget, this isn't even rounding error kind of money. This is a minuscule speck. And so to solve a problem, it's not difficult, but somebody has to be willing to do it. And if I came out of this forgetting about everything else and basically got what I told them I needed at the beginning, I would not need any additional funding for accountability court or anything else. I would be able to provide it. By the way, this is not anything extra. This is just level service going forward. That's all I think I really need. You know, the biggest issues we're going to have, I already have one of my criminal contractors resigned in Windham County. I think another one's going to be retiring in Chittenden County. I've got issues with keeping contractors and attracting contractors that I need. the ones who are left are making a lot more money, which they like, but they're also handling a lot of caseload. And
Matt, just as a heads up, we're going to be switching gears in about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give you a time check.
yeah, well,
Oh,
it's amazing how that works. When you do this 5 times, you get it timed out really good. So that's where I am. So if you have any questions about this, I'm more than happy to answer them. The bottom line is that overall, we're not in terrible shape, but it'd be good to be able to go into a year knowing that you're gonna have the staff you need to make sure that things move smoothly. And if we don't, it's not gonna be fast. It'll be slower. And we've had this issue in the past, relative to the total of our budget's over $30 million. It's not even a big portion of our budget that I'm asking for. But I know we're fighting with other people over these things that are running in state government. We're not the only one, but we are constitutionally required. So think about it.
thank you.
Happy to answer any questions, of course.
We're going to switch gears to DOC here, but if folks do have questions, they're obviously welcome to follow up with you. So, DOC, are you folks ready? Great. Do you have anything that you're going to need to put up on the screen?
Yes. Just waiting.
While you're getting that,
You don't have just 600 grand.
just so you're aware, I don't know if this maybe makes it easier for you, but feel free to try sticking to things that are more judiciary focused. That
Yeah.
that makes it easy.
Yeah.
I just.
You want to come see it? It's freezing. Just gonna well, we also have a printed copy, right? So, well, that's working.
Good morning, everyone. I'm just checking to see whether it's morning or afternoon. Thank you for having me. For the record, I am John Murad. I am the Commissioner for the Vermont Department of Corrections.
Gonna skip ahead a few slides.
No problem.
Just for time.
So this is a slide of our department priorities. Obviously, staffing remains probably our biggest issue. We are currently understaffed by about overall 12%. But that is more pronounced in our CO1 and CO2 ranks at the facilities. And of course, that's where our rubber hits our road, as it were. So
Just so you know, you folks do have 30 minutes, not 15. I know there was some.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
all right. We were trying to make sure everybody gets 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Folks have 30. I know some folks coming after you.
we can do it in 15 if that's,
Take as much time as you
Okay.
need.
Thank you.
The next piece is, so staffing is a challenge for us. Everything else hinges and falls from it. The staffing challenges that we have at facility level. That said, we are doing what we can with the staffing we've got. The other issue, which really does go hand in hand with staffing, is the question of whether or not we are over capacity or underbuilt. I do believe it is the latter. We do not have the space for what the judiciary sends to us right now. That is most observable in our female population at CRCF, but it is observable elsewhere as well. And the repercussions, specifically the female population, for example, mean that it can impact the male population. What I mean by that is we are currently at 185 women in a facility that really should only have 105 if we were to obey best practices in the profession, which is approximately 80% of the general population bed number. And instead, it has been at 180 essentially for the last 3 or 4 weeks. I do not foresee it changing as the summer rolls around and the weather changes, and we're addressing that. But our priorities include staffing, include health and wellness. We've been implementing an 1115 waiver with Medicaid, increasing offerings for substance abuse disorder treatment. So we are adding what we call enhanced treatment and putting that into facilities right now, specifically at Northwest and at CRCF. It was begun as a component of the accountability court 14-point plan process in Burlington, but it was not only limited to that. So certainly we do not only put people into this who came from that courtroom 3B in Burlington, rather anybody, anywhere, if they're in those facilities. And our intention is to roll that out ultimately to all facilities. We are working on these are all elements of our strategic plan that was created in the previous the previous corrections commissioner, Nick Demmel, working on ensuring that we have good staff retention, hires, promotions, all along ideas of equality and access, and ensuring that we are bringing aboard and all sorts of people and treating everyone equally. And then modernization, which is also our pretrial supervision program. The governor mentioned it in his budget address. We are hopeful to be able to maintain that work. And then the replacement of CRCF, which, as I mentioned earlier, is necessitated really by the population increases that we've experienced there, but also the fact that it is not our oldest facility, but it is the facility that is in the most disrepair, and it is in real need of a new and better facility.
Sorry, you want me to help you with these? It's because there's some acronyms in there. Yes, thank you. I'm Marlene Petit. I'm the Executive Director of Finance for the Department of Correction. The first key budget change is, of course, increase in salaries and benefits. Second is increase in the internal service fund charges, which is charges for any services we receive from the department, like Department of Human Resources, admin. And also our ADS allocated charge is up relative to other ISF allocations. The increase in the WellPath contract, which is due to increased average daily population at the facilities in Vermont, as well as the response recovery project. The increase in out-of-state beds is due to the increased population this year. And then an increase to operating expenses to bring in alignment with actuals of some items that we had to expend that were not actually part of the budget, but they were required to provide direct services. Increase in transitional housing under the Justice Reinvestment. And then we decrease in other personal services and operating expenses to meet the FY27 reduction target that we were provided with. Decrease in general fund payroll and increase to the global commitment with eligible activities via random moment time study statistic. And that's new. That's our probation and parole. We're now doing the random moment time study. And so there's $2.5 million budgeted for FY27.
Just a clarifying question, FY27 reduction target, what does that mean?
So we're under an agency of AHS, and AHS was given a reduction target, which then the individual departments within AHS were given a certain amount that they needed to come up with to reduce their budgets, their overall budgets.
Thanks.
And then a decrease in general fund for the Justice Reentry Medicaid and the offsetting increase to the global commitment. So because we are expected to receive global commitment funds, then that decreases the need for general funds.
So this is just a visualization of where the money is in our budget. So that 244 million sort of works out the correctional services, which includes payroll and also the facility maintenance, et cetera, is in the big one. Healthcare generally is actually a part of correctional services, but we broke it out so they could be more easily discerned here. And it is the contract with the healthcare provider WellPath. And then there are some other pieces. These are out of state is there at 4.1 million. That is for the 150 people that we currently have. Contract with the out-of-state provider allows for up to 300 persons, but we are only budgeting right now for the 150 that are there and do not anticipate sending any additional out at this time. Although, as I said, when there are changes in population, we have to make other kinds of determinations. And the challenge with population is that we have zero control over that. Zero is not entirely accurate. We have very little control over the population. It's sent to us by the courts. It's predicated on what is happening in the public with regard to arrests, and then detentions and convictions. The parole board and then the work offender program, there are sort of relatively small portions of the pie. Another way of looking at it as well, here we see the where it's coming, where the funds are coming from for the 244 million. And it's almost entirely general fund.
What was the governor's recommended budget? Is that included in this?
This is
This is the governor's recommend, with no addition.
244.5 is the governor's recommendation.
Sorry, say that one more time.
244 million is the governor's recommendation. And that represents a small, and that represents an increase from previous years.
Tie into the numbers you've seen as the roll-up report, which is the governor's recommended budget. The formal.
Senator Russ.
Yeah, Commissioner, section B 338, pre-trial supervision statewide expansion. Did that originally start in Orange County, or what was that? There was nothing spent there. Is this money that simply interdepartmental transfers, or how do you account for that?
That is new employees as well. So it began with a project in both Caledonia and Essex. And we looked there first for the pilot, but it quickly expanded to Burlington as a component of the 14-point plan in Burlington. And so there are pretrial, a staff member of pretrial was there as well. I think we have a total of how many right now? Nearly 5.
I think in Essex and Orleans, there's actually one individual on free trial, and Burlington might also have, I believe it was one the last I checked, but we can reach out to our field office in that area to.
And then one state jumpers. I thought we were up to 5 total persons.
We can get those
That's
numbers
pretrial.
for you.
So I guess my question is, so it's still going on in Caledonia and Essex. When you say expansion, those still remain, you move it to Burlington or Chittenden County also?
Affirmative.
Okay. Which I believe you were very on to that statewide, but it was higher funding, it's only in force.
Would you like us to go through the ups and downs, or would you?
Whatever you, folks have about a little 17 minutes or so left. So whatever you think is the most important for us to pick.
Okay, so these are the ups and downs, again, that will tie back into it is the governor's recommend. In general, salaries and benefits. If we go to B338, page 22. Under correctional services, which the majority changes besides salaries. Since the pre-trial supervision is listed in here at 506200. $200,000 increase for general fund requested. Sheriff's transports recommendations, increased cost and volume. And then the well path staffing. This is contract increases that have to do with the average daily population increase in the facilities. And also the justice reentry revenue is taken effect, but there's a Burlington project that we don't call it that. We call it the response recovery for Chittenden, right? Yeah. This was the earlier language back in the January.
Again, it was associated with the Burlington 14-point plan, but it really is not about the Burlington 14-point plan. It is currently at Northwest for males and at Chittenden for females. It includes clinical staff who are trained in additional ways to address substance use disorder, and who are not to get so that we can move beyond what I think DOC has done quite effectively over the past decade, which is implementing MAT and MOUD and addressing medical aspects of substance use disorder, ameliorating symptoms of people who come into our system suffering from that disease. This is a means of getting at some of the root causes of the disease, working with individuals to help them in a more therapeutic way than mere medical amelioration. And so we're not abandoning one by any means. We're rolling this out in these two facilities. It does require an increase in the well path contract because these are new clinical positions. And our expectation is eventually to offer this at all facilities because we believe it to be an important part of path and recovery, not merely keeping somebody sort of the pain of withdrawal and the need away from a person via that, but actually getting at the things that potentially obviate need for them at some point.
Next item is other contracts, technical adjustment, DOC net neutral with salary and benefits for $650,000. So what that is when you go to request, when we request, any department or agency request funds, we cannot adjust anything with salaries and benefits if we're requesting positions. That's locked down with the Department of Finance. So we'll put it in as a placeholder. So last year, the placeholder was this 507600 account number for 650. This was for pre-trial for positions that were there. We're taking it out of this section because it's in salaries and benefits. So we're reducing it here. Otherwise, we would be, if that makes sense. So we're just trying to correct that here. Then software as a service. This was a safe app purchase that has been discontinued because we have better services available through our current suite of ADS options. So that was a $20,000 decrease. Mott's Group is a current agreement that did end in November and will not be renewed based upon the current strategies that are in place. So that's a $251,000 decrease. Intentional Evolution, it continues as a contract, but because they're refocusing the work as under the strategic plan, it's a $50,000 reduction to the contract. Great Media, WCAX, again, a refocusing of the work in comparison to recruitment and facility efforts outside the agreement with WCAX. So we still have the contract, we're just reducing it 23,000. And these are part of the target reductions that we offered and were accepted. The vacancy savings adjustment is not all of our vacancy savings. As the commissioner noted, we have a number of many positions that are vacant, but it's a portion that we expect and have seen over a period of time, so that with AHS, this is considered a reasonable amount. It's not the full amount of vacant positions at any given time.
Obviously, we don't, the vacant positions are positions that we need, and we are trying to fill them. This is not a matter of having positions that just sort of were proven not to be necessary because, oh, you've made do without having them, it must not be needed. We do very much need those positions on the floors. We're asking a lot of our staff in order to get through with what we've got. And again, that could increase if we get more people sent to us as either detainees or sentenced folk. But can we reasonably staff up by 12%, really in the facilities. Can we reasonably staff up by 20% in the CO1 or CO2 ranks in certain facilities? No, we cannot. We are making great progress on hiring. We are making less progress, although we are making progress on retention. And so there is no world in which in the next fiscal year we actually staff to 100%, and hence the ability to sort of mark some savings here.
Looks like, yeah.
I do. I'm wondering what budgetary impact the federal detainees have.
Almost, actually, it is a positive impact. We get income from that. And so the number of detainees that we have is very small. It doesn't change our staffing. I do think that there are some stresses on, for example, it's another person to intake, but we wouldn't otherwise be intaking. There's healthcare that goes to that individual with regard to dealing, WellPath, for example, dealing with folks. We can't really quantify what those costs are, aside from noting we know what our overall costs are divided by our entire population. And in that respect, the money that comes in through the federal contract is essentially a wash. But the numbers are small enough that the presence of federal detainees, both immigration detainees and federal detainees for other reasons, are more concerning to us right now with regard to head count inside than it is for these cost issues. And the immigration component of that is actually very tiny. We have one female immigration detainee right now at CRCF. So that contribution to the problem, the challenges that we're facing at CRCF, as I mentioned earlier, is very small. And we have, I believe this morning, maybe 10 male detainees at Northwest, and that is not a 9, I think. We have 9 at Northwest. And that is not, Northwest is not currently facing significant capacity issues.
So is that a change? Because last year we heard that we lost money on every federal detainee. So what has changed?
Well, as I said, it's a bit of a wash. I mean, we renegotiated the contract, so it's a higher amount of money that we get paid now. It's just under 200, yes.
Yeah, I'm pulling that up right now.
And our average across the system, though, is, I believe, 300. So there is a nominal loss there. And insofar as what we actually experience, it's relatively small, owing to the very small numbers.
It's 185.
So I went to the general fund, and then of course there's the, I didn't want to mention the Medicaid Global Commitment Fund, which next to the WellPath, there's 801,823. So the WellPath contract is being offset by that. In addition to the general fund, it's being offset by the Global Commitment Fund. So that puts less pressure on the general fund. And then we have the Investment Global Commitment Fund, which also goes back to Medicaid, but they parse it out differently.
Noting the time, I know that we only have a few minutes left. Do you want to give the committee an opportunity to ask any questions on what we presented thus far?
Well, I did want to, see if there was any closing remarks from you folks before we open it up to any questions or anything like that.
No, so
Primary takeaway.
we had prepared for sort of 15 minutes, which was down and dirty and quick. So no, there wasn't much in that way, in the way of the closing remarks.
Okay.
But we'd be happy for any questions that you got.
Any additional questions?
Recruiting wise, what's the department doing for trying to dip away at that 12%?
Yeah. So that WCAX contract that was up there is a component of that. The other components are that each facility now has an individual who is dedicated to what we call the facility experience. And that includes efforts at retention by making connection with and checking in on wellness for current employees. But it also includes a dedicated employee at the facility level who is really in charge of bringing in new recruits, of liaising with those new recruits or candidates, really, of making sure that they are being contacted, that we're not losing anybody because the person doesn't think that the job is still available or that the department is still interested in them. And then also liaises with them consistently throughout their academy experience, and then when they come back, checks in on with them as well. So that's one big piece. And there's relatively strong social media presence at facility level. Just as one example, if you go to Northwest's Facebook page, it's a good, strong Facebook page. Those are the things we're doing. I'm convening a meeting in the very early summer in which recruitment is going to be a topic, and a comparison of recruitment and retention efforts among the 6 facilities.
Are you guys focusing at all on like out of state, trying to get folks from out of state, or?
We've had quite a bit of success getting people out of state in certain facilities. So for example, New York State's correctional system has undergone a certain degree of upheaval over the last 2+ years, and we have benefited from that upheaval. There are any number of folks who otherwise would have worked at facilities in the northeastern part of New York State that can very easily transition to the northwestern part of Vermont. It's just as easy to make it from towns around Plattsburgh to St. Albans as it is to make it from those towns to Dannemora and the Clinton facility. And so we have benefited from that. We've gotten a number of those. The challenge for us right now really is at our facility in Newport, the Northern State Correctional Facility. That region is difficult to access, and it is, for lack of a better term, fished out. We have gotten, many of the people that live there have already been employed or are not eligible for employment. Once upon a time, I believe that we had a certain number from across the border. That is much more difficult in this time, but that's not a major contributing factor. The major contributing factor is that it's difficult to move from New York State to Newport. That's a difficult commute. It is difficult to go from New Hampshire to Newport. Where New Hampshire, we do have New Hampshire employees at both St. Johnsbury and at Southern State in Springfield. Just those are in places where it's a little bit easier to catch. The Newport facility is a challenge based on its location. Sure. And it is currently the one that is experiencing the most pronounced staffing challenge.
And the housing availability up there, if you are to get a new out of state.
Yeah.
It's a little tougher. Thank you.
Thanks.
Just on the sort of staffing, a few years back, there was a survey done of the staff to sort of get a sense of what the challenges were. And has that been updated at all?
Yes, actually, I could, I have one. If I can go to my phone and actually get the results for you, if you'd like me to talk about them right now. But I also don't want to do that. Just try not to go to the devices.
If you want to send it to the committee, that would be
We
great.
can do that. Yep.
Thank you.
What we saw is some real positive movement with regard to morale and certain markers of that. We saw things that we need to change too. They are quite interested in making certain, they being our employees, our team, quite interested in making certain that we continue with our modernization efforts, that we are as technologically forward as we are, I think, sort of ideologically and programmatically forward. There are, questions around that. Overtime remains a challenge. We ask a lot of certain places, but other parts of the department, not so much. The creation of something called the Central Operations Division, which is a means of really taking over the responsibility for hospitalized prisoners from a central position rather than the facilities having to handle it, has resulted in 92% of our current hospitalizations being handled by this unit rather than by personnel at the facilities. And that has significantly decreased both overtime at the facilities with regard to that particular task and travel with regard to that particular task. It is a challenge if you are somebody who's assigned to Northern and one of your incarcerated individuals has to go to Dartmouth for treatment. That's a challenge. Now we have a unit that's dedicated to that kind of work. So that's helped. But there are still things we can work on, and I'm happy to share that one pager with you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Senator, I got a quick one. You're not answering right now, Marlene. I know you're in approach for the BAA. I don't think we've seen you in approach for this year's budget as of yet. No, but this got it. So the question I want to ask in there is obviously I see the governor's original recommend Then the addendum came in at a later date of time. I just wondered about the time span between the original recommend, the addendum, and where are you now with the stand within the 3% of the governor's recommend? You're not answer that today.
Okay, I'll take a look at our, I have been looking at what has been coming out of, any changes that have come out of the House and or the Senate. And it's primarily an AHS, it's not been DOC. So, but I will take a look at that.
Yeah, but I'm just letting you know, it's going to come up for question.
Yeah, we've been fortunate compared to our siblings in AHS in that our budget being largely general fund and being largely about either physical plant and or human capital has not been as affected by many of the challenges that have been seen at the grant level and federal level.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Next up, we have the monthly.
Sorry, in case you need that. Good morning. My name is Bessie Weiss, and I am Executive Director of Vermont Legal Aid. Question part of this. Thank you for giving me this time today. Vermont Legal Aid, with our sister organization, Legal Services Vermont, are Vermont's only statewide providers of comprehensive free legal services. Legal Aid has served in that role since 1968. Let me talk a little bit about the amount of service we provide. We field 26,000 requests for legal assistance every year. And last year, we directly assisted 18,000 responders. We provide full representation in approximately 2,600 to 3,000 cases every year. In the last year, due to funding losses in some areas and stagnant funding in others, we lost a combined 11 staff members. The staff and funding reductions have hit our core legal services the hardest, specifically housing, benefits, the legal helpline, and legal services for elder Vermonters. We're asking for three things today: maintaining the funding in the House budget for 2 immigrant legal service providers, maintaining the funding in the House budget for our helpline, and continuing our maybe I'm asking for it. Continuing our tenant representation pilot project and providing an inflationary increase to our core legal services funding. Right now, we are at a turning point. Demand for our services has more than doubled, up 104% since 2022, driven by the huge rise in demand for legal services in housing, access to health and economic benefits, and family law. At the same time as the civil legal needs of Vermonters have skyrocketed, the state funds that sustain those legal needs have remained flat for the last 3 years. The funding that comes to us through the Agency of Human Services must first go to statutorily mandated legal services, primarily involuntary treatment cases. Because funding has not risen with inflation for 3 years, every year a smaller portion of these funds are available to provide core legal services. It's also important to know that for every dollar spent on these core legal services, which are things like access to Social Security, disability, energy assistance, and housing, AHS gets 50 cents back in federal matching funds. In addition to the critical need for shoring up these core services, there's the need to maintain funding for 2 immigration attorneys that began work this year through a partnership with the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, and funds to prevent the loss of a tenant representation pilot project. Therefore, I'm here to respectfully ask for your support. An appropriation of a little over $1 million in state fiscal year 2027 would enable Vermont Legal Aid to stabilize core legal services, continue urgent immigration work, maintain the legal helpline, and sustain a proven eviction prevention program. I know that sounds like a lot of money, but this investment will actually save Vermonters millions of dollars. I'll go into how later.
Can I quick interjection. Do you have a written handout or anything? And
Yes.
thanks. If you wouldn't mind sending that to our committee assistants as well. Thanks.
Of course, and I could also provide a copy of this testimony afterwards. I will now focus on the legal services that were included in the House budget. Our immigration legal work and legal helpline. We are deeply grateful these requests were included. Vermont Legal Aid is responding to the urgent immigration crisis across the state. For the first time in our history, Vermont Legal Aid has launched an immigration practice. Partnering with the Vermont Asylum Assistance Project, we began the Immigration Community Lawyering Initiative, placing attorneys directly in communities to provide support where non-citizen Vermonters are at. These two attorneys will directly serve an additional 60 to 80 low-income non-citizen Vermonters facing family separation and deportation per year. They are a critical part of the state's emerging immigration bar, providing free legal services. This work is already making a difference, helping families stay together, access safety, and navigate a complex legal system. We are truly appreciative that the House included $200,000 to support this work, and we respectfully ask that you maintain this funding. Right now, these positions are only funded through December. Without continued support, this work will end just as the need continues to grow. I will now move to the other appropriation request that was included in the House budget. As I stated, Vermont Legal Aid with Legal Services Vermont are the only providers of a range of core legal services throughout the state. Statewide legal helpline run through Legal Services Vermont provides quick legal advice, information, and referral. It is through the helpline that we field the more than 26,000 requests for legal assistance and receive the information to directly assist 18,000 Vermonters and provide full representation in 2,600 to 3,000 cases a year. But there's a challenge. The helpline is severely underfunded. It costs about $900,000 a year to operate and currently receives just $100,000 in state support. Because of the reduction in funding in the past year, the wait time for Vermonters receiving help through the helpline has increased, and callers with certain issues no longer receive callbacks. Therefore, we are deeply grateful that the House included $100,000 to strengthen the helpline, and we ask that you keep this funding in place. Now I'm going to move to what we are requesting beyond what the House included in their budget. The tenant representation pilot program that has been functioning now for about a year is one of the most effective tools we have to prevent eviction and homelessness. Even with its current limits, serving only Memorial and Windsor counties, it is delivering clear, measurable results. Between August 2025 and March 2026, more than half of tenants facing eviction who received help were able to stay in their homes. 22% of those tenants were aged 60 or older. Most of the other cases were resolved through negotiated settlements, allowing for structured move-out times with tenant input into the terms instead of default judgments. And yet this program will end on October 31st, 2026, if the legislature does not provide an appropriation in this state fiscal year budget. We are requesting $510,000 to sustain and build on the success of this pilot that accomplished every goal intended. This is especially crucial if the House passed H 772 becomes law, because notices and timeframes become shorter in the eviction court process. Also want to talk about the savings that this program that has been achieved.
this year, the tenant rights representation program saved tenancies for around 40 households. Saving 40 households from homelessness saves Vermont approximately $2.1 million. We arrive at that because the average household is a little over 2 individuals, and saving one person from homelessness saves Vermont $23,500 per person. We get these numbers through the Vermont State Auditor of Accounts newsletter of August 6, 2025, that found that over $800 million was spent in homelessness spending over a decade, and that there are around 3,458 unhoused Vermonters. Finally, going back to our funding through AHS, which has been at $2.6 million for the last 3 years. Vermont Legal Aid's capacity to provide core legal services will continue to shrink if we go another year without an increase. We are requesting $235,620 to account for inflation and stabilize these core services. And just want to highlight again that the money spent, every dollar spent on these core services, AHS receives a 50-cent match from the federal government. Civil legal aid is often the difference between stability and crisis. And citing another study that shows just how much civil legal aid saves is from the 2019 study commissioned by the Vermont Bar Foundation that found that legal assistance programs generate $11 in economic activity for each dollar invested. When we prevent eviction, resolve issues early, and stabilize families, we reduce reliance on shelters, emergency health care, and other costly systems. We respectfully ask that you maintain the House passed funding for immigration and the legal helpline and support the additional investment needed to stabilize core services and sustain the tenant representation program. Thank you for your time, your partnership, your continued commitment to Vermont's most vulnerable communities. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Just a quick question. The 50 cents that gets reinvested into AHS, general legal services, is that what's the name of that program?
The program that provides those services is our poverty law project.
And on the federal level? On the
federal level, that is through money that the AHS can recover through the Social Security block grant.
Thank you. Maybe any other questions? Great. Well, thank you for your time. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we have Todd. You have the judiciary coming in at 11:30, and they. How much time did you need, Todd?
Hey, that'll be up to the questions of the committee. I'm happy to go now for 15 minutes, or I'm happy to come back. Everything is.
Okay. If you need 30 minutes, we can find another day. But if 15 to 20 works for you, we can do that, and then we can go to the judiciary at 11:30. We're at 11:17 right now.
So you stood Port County, what's it? So I think so for the record, Todd Dale is Assistant Attorney General. Thanks for having me here today. I think I'm going to be up here. You've got a draft. Thank you, Henry. You have a draft of our presentation. I'm going to be very quick. The high level is we're basically in line with the governor's rec. It was very much appreciate where the governor our budget recommendation and met almost all our needs. The one piece that was not in the gov rec that I'll focus on here is an $85,000 limited term service position that focuses on a subject this committee is well aware of, home improvement fraud. And so I'll make a little pitch on that. That position is included in the House budget, and it came over to you all, and we really appreciate your support in keeping it in the budget. We think it's a really important position. So that's the presentation. I'll walk you through some of the high level information just to share kind of how our budget is built, and then answer any questions. Any questions you may have. All right, so I won't even go through all the slides here, but the AG's budget, as you'll see, is about half general fund, and then about a quarter of it is from interdepartmental transfer. That for all the AAGs who work in other agencies or for other agencies, they pay for those services as they do. Say ABS or AGS or something like internal services. There's a small amount of federal revenue. The tobacco fund puts in for a little bit of work as well. And then there's special funding around 16%. It's 150 positions, 2/3 of them are lawyers, but there are a good number of classified paralegals, other assistants, investigators as well. Important therein is just to note that 93 of those positions are actual AGO numbers, but then fully 1/3 are funded and are actual positions that sit in AHS, in AMT, and in other client agencies. It's a somewhat unique position, but it speaks really to how integrated the AGO is in terms of providing legal services and the ability of the AGO to have those close working relationships with the administration, which is very, very helpful. I think most of what I come in here to talk to you all about and what you hear from is the criminal division. There are 5 other divisions: administration, the front office folks like me, and then environmental and public protection. That's a lot of consumer work and a lot of environmental work working with A&R, but also our CAP program, which I'll talk about in a minute. Criminal, as I said, general counsel and administrative law, those are the kind of catch-all. They would deal with AOT sits there, the tax department sits there, VGS sits there, but they also help staff the medical practice board or some of those other quasi-judicial entities that really serve as the legal representation. Of course, the biggest division is human services. That's about 34 attorneys work for AHS. And then our civil division, which are the folks who defend the state when we're sued. The other piece of our budget, not the AGO's budget, but it sits under the Attorney General, is an appropriation for diversion. And happy to say we're going to work to continue expanding the pretrial, pre-charge diversion program into all 13 counties, 14 counties, and ensure that we're staying within the 3% increase that the governor recommended there as that program rolls forward. So no request for any further funding there.
Yeah, Todd, I do have a question. Just out of curiosity, when we look at civil suits being filed against the state, just want to how does that compare to civil suits filed against the state versus the state filed civil suits against other administrations?
It's a great question. Those folks, the civil division, which is actually where I started my legal career, it's all defensive work. So it is people suing an AOT truck clips a car. Somebody is fighting a piece of legislation that they don't believe is constitutional. There may be concerns around ESP actions. They cover the gamut when there is a state employee or a state agency or entity or a law. The lawsuits that we have been filing, often in concert with others against actions of the federal administration, defending the Constitution, defending the laws. Those are done through our appellate unit. By and large, that sits with the GCAL division. That's just a handful of 3 attorneys sit there. They also handle all the appeals across the board.
But in reference to a comparison numbers wise, just
Probably,
43, 44 against outside entities, how many do we have in the Vermont being filed against the state of Vermont?
there are 8 or 9 attorneys in civil division who handle all of this.
And those numbers are, any idea what those numbers?
Oh, how many suits?
Yeah.
Gotcha. And that's tough to say because the caseloads fluctuate. I bet it's 20 to 25 cases. I'd be making it up, though. I really don't have that on the top of my head.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I can walk through this, but again, the takeaway is really that, our increases are to be expected. That upper right corner box there, the personal services, we are mostly human beings. We don't have a lot of overhead beyond that. And so our costs have gone up as the costs of employees have gone up. The big bump for us is also case management system. It'll be the same case management system, not the same internal system, but the same product that the state's attorneys use, which we think will help with a degree of communication, but also just government is helped when we're all on the same kind of platform. We already had the implementation cost of that, and this $335,000 is the maintenance operation going forward. As I said, the one piece, I'm going to skip through the bragging slides as the Attorney General calls them to just jump straight ahead. And I should have led with this. The Attorney General is sorry, she is not able, she usually does this presentation. So she wanted to be here, isn't able to be here to do it, but happy to answer questions if you got them. So this is the one request, as I said, that is above GovRec, and it is included in the House version of the budget. It's $85,000 for a home improvement specialist. It's a limited term service position that was kind of created in Act 182, which, as you may remember, was about licensure. And it was sort of seen as a compromise around licensure for contractors. This was an opportunity to say, let's see what happens if we create kind of a mediator program. Gabriel is his name. He's been in the job since July of 23. As you'll see there, almost 200 different complaints have come through him. He actually was a contractor, was also trained as a paralegal, so brings kind of both of those pieces together, has been very successful. We get regularly sort of like gushing emails, especially about his work. But as you'll see there, savings or recovery of about $1.2 million for Vermonters. And that, importantly, is not just the homeowners who may be having challenges with the contractor. Sometimes it's the contractor having challenges with the homeowner. It's really about helping mediate those conflicts. So, the number down there is for the total cost of his position over 3.5 years, about a little under $200,000. It's a 600% increase. We think it's a very small amount of money. I will also just say, likely with I believe 183 from this committee, S183, the home improvement fraud amendment will likely pass the House. And that will likely increase some of the pressure because there'll be fewer prosecutions, understandably, under the statute. So that's really the ask. I'm happy to walk through the rest of the slides. This is just showing the breakdown of that by county, how many cases over each year in the home improvement specialist category, and what the recoveries generally are.
Any questions? Thank you.
I'm worried there are no questions, but I trust you. All these emphasis. I don't think it's attention. Well, thank you all very much. And of course, always happy to answer questions. But we also appreciate your comments.
Thank you. So and are they coming on Zoom? Or
We have one individual break. So how about this one? Stand by.
okay. Let's take a 5-minute break.